Prior to the first corporate war, the consensus was that corporations never fought each other, mainly to avoid too much attention from governments. However, as the size and power of the megacorporations grew, many smaller nations began capitulating to their influence. The first corporate war occurred between 2004 and February 2006. Electronics giant Eurobusiness Machines, aka IBM, and rival spaceplane manufacturer Orbital Air came to blows over floundering Transworld Air. Most of the conflict took place via stock manipulation and boardroom maneuvers, with only occasional military strikes against each other's holdings. IBM were already the largest computer and high-tech manufacturer in the world, and one of the most significant corporations in existence under the guidance of Dr. Kurt Müller, Ulf Grunwalder of Munich, and Sir Nathaniel Poole of London. Orbital Air, with their large fleet of Hermes spaceplanes, monopolized all orbital lifting capability. Many corporations relied on Orbital Air for transport of cargo out of the gravity well. The Eurospace Agency's Crystal Tower colony, a massive space hotel for the ultra-rich, would be out of business without them. The first corporate war began when IBM's leveraged buyout of the failing Transworld Airlines fell apart after negotiations turned sour. Orbital Air came to their aid by blocking IBM's buyout attempt. In retaliation, IBM dispatched terrorists to kidnap the Orbital Air negotiations team en route to close the Transworld Airlines deal. The terrorists bundled, and IBM's anonymity was compromised. Orbital Air immediately responded by recruiting Zetatech, who unleashed a torrent of net attacks against IBM. These attacks, though damaging, were quickly put down, forcing Zetatech out of the war. Orbital Air then used their dominance in the low Earth orbit to establish a blockade against IBM facilities. There were only two major battles during the conflict. The first occurred when Orbital Air commandos captured a central IBM space station in response to a large hijacking on that same day by IBM. Both sides were chastised by the European Space Agency, who lifted all the blockades and warned the competitors not to extend their fight into low Earth orbit again. The second battle didn't occur until a year later, when Orbital Air commandos attacked CEO Ulf Grunwalder's compound in Bavaria, capturing him and forcing IBM to surrender. The ramifications of this war were vast. It gave other corporations the green light to use wholesale military tactics to obtain favourable business results. Although some smaller firms had engaged in petty armed squabbles in the past, nothing had ever matched the ferocity and size of this conflict. The second corporate war occurred between April 2008 and August 2010, pitted biofuel manufacturer Petrochem against its Russian rival, Soviet World Oil Industries, aka Sovoil. Petrochem is the world's largest CO2 producer. As the name suggests, oil is Sovoil's primary source of income. The company pumps 10 million barrels a day from fields in the Caspian and South China Seas, Antarctica, Siberia, and Kazakhstan. Fighting over drilling rights in the South China Sea, this corporate war was far deadlier, since with the collapse of the Soviet Union a decade earlier, Sovoil had gained military technology previously only accessible to major nations. Relations began to sour between the two firms after a drilling accident at a petrochem platform in the Pacific Rim. Initially, Sovoil enjoyed a string of military victories, although both sides had severely crippled each other's oil facilities within just a few weeks. Petrochem's success peaked with their surprise capture of the Spratly Island chain and their assassination of Sovoil founder and CEO Anatoly Novikov. Sovoil retaliated with an all-out offensive, reducing Petrochem's military strength considerably. There was no formal surrender, but the war effectively ended with Sovoil victorious. The Second Corporate War had several ramifications. It marked the first time that a corporation publicly defied national government. Both sides used the smaller Pacific Rim nations as extensions of their own armed forces, replacing administrations in some cases and installing friendly ones. In fact, Petrochem's assassination of Novikovo was carried out with a squadron of modified Mirage 3 fighters on loan from Malaysia. Because of the constant raiding by both sides against each other's oil refineries, drilling facilities, and pipelines, the war left most of the southern Pacific Rim badly polluted. The South China Sea, the focus of the conflict, became uninhabitable. Entire national economies were ruined, and although Soval was forced to pay reparations, no amount of money could ever undo the damage. The Third Corporate War took place between February 2016 and November 2016 and was fought almost entirely in the net. Hostilities began when financial examiners from the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce uncovered a confidence scheme being perpetrated by certain investment counselors at Merrill, Arasaka, and Finch, aka MAF, against private investors, using the Rothstein Fund, a subsidiary of the Bank of New York, as leverage. They notified the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office, who began an investigation the next day. The Rothstein Fund, angered by MAF's duplicity and not wishing to get dragged down in the investigation, turned everything they had over to the District Attorney's Office. Netrunners on both sides began fighting. For several days, the situation was a confused melee. Data fortresses became armed camps as everyone nervously watched to see what would happen next. Netwatch responded by limiting net access and cracking down on computer crime, making several sweeps resulting in numerous arrests and flatlines. Both the Rothstein Fund and MAF escalated the conflict to the meat world. They began hiring mercenaries. During a 12-hour period, short-pitched battles were fought in low Earth orbit and on Earth, all to destroy the physical locations of the enemy's net communications gear. These battles ended with considerable loss of life and millions of dollars in material destruction. The next 6 months consisted of endless net raids, most of them inconsequential and undecisive. When it was over, the Rothstein Fund ceased to exist. MAF turned the corpses of 2 of their executives, who had started the whole mess, over to the Los Angeles District Attorney. While the Third Corporate War was primarily fought via computer attacks in the net, most mega corporations soon chose to protect operations with their own paramilitary forces or to subcontract security to specialized corporations. One such corporation was Arasaka, a multinational founded by Saburo Arasaka. Its counterpart was US-based Militech, specializing in military hardware and mercenaries for hire. There was no love lost between these two corporations. All they lacked was an excuse, and by 2021 they had it. The Fourth Corporate War started as a hostile takeover squabble between Aquatech company OTEC and submarine transport firm Sino to acquire the assets of bankrupt shipping firm IHAG. Both corporations brought in their security contractors, Militech and Arasaka, respectively. Arasaka and Militech, sensing a chance to eliminate a rival, raised the stakes. By the summer of 2022, it was open war in the streets with tanks, troops, aircraft, and netrunners all in play. Cyber attacks disrupted banking information and media services. Orbital space narrowly escaped becoming another battlefield, only because the space-dwelling high riders began to hit both sides with lethal suborbital artillery strikes capable of wiping out most of a small city. Then came the Night City Holocaust. On August 20th, 2023, as Morgan Blackhand and Adam Smasher went one-on-one at Arasaka Towers in Night City, the nuclear demolition charges Blackhand deployed destroyed a significant proportion of Night City and contaminated the ruins with lethal fallout. The nuke's enhanced EMP effect also fried cyberware, rendering thousands deaf, blind, or functionally limbless. Many died. To end the fighting, US President Elizabeth Kress nationalized Militech, and EU governments followed suit, nationalizing or interdicting assets of both participants of the war. The war was over, and the time of the Red began.
War. War never changes.